Well, the meta balance changes have arrived just in time for the start of this season. And some of these balance changes are pretty surprising to say the least. Well, if you haven't heard, the developers decided to announce that they balanced 60 weapons that were selected by the community. A few of these balance changes, I would say personally, are pretty surprising to see. So in this video, we'll be going over all 60 weapons that were affected with the balance changes. This may take a while, so I'll probably put some timestamps on the video, just in case if you want to focus on one category. This video will be a lot more different than the armor rebalance video that I made months ago, where we're going to do is focus on how these weapons were changed. By that I mean we're going to start off with each segment with weapons that were affected with one change. After we go through the single changes, then we're going to do is go to weapons that were affected with multiple changes. Hoping that should clarify on how we're going to do with this video. A couple of these weapon adjustments are somewhat complicated. By that I mean they're focusing more on advanced changes that are apart from DPS / damages, and as well as the more common stats that we usually see. But I'm hoping for the best to sort of dumb it down, or I guess we have to do is explain it to be a lot more easier to understand. But anyways, let's proceed with the video by starting off with the primaries. Starting off with the golden frame, which seems that they've decided to do is add in the critical damage attribute. This one was somewhat of a strange addition to add to the golden frame, as we have the honored version which has the attribute. Even with or without the critical damage attribute, the original still does a lot more DPS compared to the honored version. But nonetheless, they decided to do is include an additional attribute to it. Next up being a 10% DPS increase for the Casanova. Next up we have a 12% DPS increase, but also a mobility increase for the combat rifle. Next goes for the Boar's Roar, doubling its critical chance from 5% to 10 and increasing its bullet count to 18. Final buff for the primary being the Aloha Boom Boom, receiving a 7% DPS increase, and mobility increase, as well as an attack speed. And moving towards the nerfs, the Ruby Shotgun did receive an 11% damage decrease. The next nerf following it being for the Deadly Icicle being that it will receive a 50% scatter reduction. The next nerf that follows being the legendary version for the Advanced Scout Rifle, mainly with these nerfs being ammo related. I feel like that nerf for the Advanced Scout Rifle, mainly the legendary version, does seem a bit unjustified. This nerf, which is really surprising to see, being for the Ultimanium, with the nerfs being ammo related as well as the pellets being reduced. The reason why I say that is that mostly when it comes to like this game, the Ultimanium is sort of treated as the golden child for the developers. Over the past year since its introduction, the community has been complaining about having the Ultimanium be nerfed for how powerful it is, and even then, with the suggestions, they wouldn't necessarily consider nerfing it. So it's pretty surprising to see the nerf to the Ultimanium, but not necessarily damage-wise, but other aspects of it. The last balance change that caps off the primary section has to go for the Polar's Wrath. These nerfs focusing on the projectile's lifespan as well as the impact. I'm hoping for the best that this would reduce the amount of AFK players you'll probably find at Silent School spamming this weapon. Even though these changes aren't going to be affecting it that much, at least it's something. Now let's move towards the next category, being the backups. A simple buff for the Waning Moon, receiving a 26% damage increase. The next weapon that follows is the Exterminator, receiving a 7% damage increase as well as increasing its attack speed by 11%. The next weapon that follows being the AI pistol, buffing its damage over time by essentially doing is increasing its strength as well as its duration. Next weapon after that being the Dual Anglers, receiving a 50% damage increase but also being given the critical damage attribute. This buff was also surprising to say the least, with it giving the critical damage attribute. Next up we have the Laser Cycler, receiving 2 buffs and 1 nerf, 12% damage increase but also increasing the ricochet from 5 to 7, but also decreasing the slowdown infliction from 2 seconds to 1.5. The last buff for this category being for the Fake Pistol, increasing its damage by 10%, a few buffs that are ammo related, increasing the bleeding infliction tick to 4 and also making it a lot more accurate in long distance. Now moving towards the nerfs being for the Gilded Gaze, having a 10% damage decrease. The last nerf to cap off the backup category being the Bloody Mercenary, mainly with it focusing on ammo. The next category being melees is going to be a lot more surprising, if you will. Starting off with the Beetle's Wand, increasing the poison ticks to 4 and also increasing its strength as well as duration. Gonna knock out these 2 melees real quickly. The Dark Force Saber, increasing its strength as well as its duration of the burning debuff. And as for the Heroic Epi, it inflicts poison for every single strike. And for the Super Punch Strike, increasing its damage by 60% with poison. The next weapon, which is a big glow up, is for the Thermal Ultra Scythe, increasing the charge speed by 27%, making it a lot more faster to dash. Probably the greatest addition that comes from this buff being that it also inflicts super burning. So you can dash through your opponents, and if that doesn't kill them, the super burning will incinerate them to finish off. Next up we have the Berserk Exoskeleton, receiving a buff as well as a nerf. increasing the DPS by 32% and also increasing the bleeding strength by 96%. The slight trade-off being that the bleeding tick has been reduced from 3 to 2. Am I the only one that's noticing a pattern when it comes to like these debuffs inflictions, strength being a lot more better? Anyways, next up being the katana having a few buffs and a couple nerfs, increasing the damage by 10% and also doing is increasing its temp speed up by 20%. With these nerfs affecting its bleeding attribute, but also increasing its bleeding damage by 40%. I kinda wish the last samurai was given more love. Now moving towards the nerfs, starting off with the touchdown gauntlets, with it nerfing its damage by 14% and also nerfing its mobility by 10. The thing that really resolves this weapon with it increasing its charge time by 30%. This melee was much more of an issue when it was first announced and then later was released in one of the previous seasons. Practically the main issue with this melee being that it had a faster charge time compared to the Thermal Ultra Scythe. The melee itself dethroned the Thermal Ultra Scythe with how fast it made it just like dash towards anywhere. And almost a year later, the touchdown gauntlets have finally been nerfed and the Thermal Ultra Scythe is now more superior. Next up we have the Banhammer receiving a 24% damage decrease and also decreasing its attack speed by 25%. Following that being the second Life Vacuum receiving an 8% damage decrease and also decreasing its dash efficiency by 30%. Next up being the DJ's deck receiving a nerf, decreasing the slowness infliction by 25% and also decreasing its attack speed by 20%. And the last nerf to cap off the melee section being for the Sons of Anarchy, decreasing the damage by 15% and also doing is decreasing its attack speed by 25%. Well, we're halfway through this list with 3 more categories left to go. The next set of weapons being for the special category, though these few changes are somewhat complex. As I mentioned at the start of the video, a few of these changes are somewhat more advanced compared to what we usually get. I guess starting off lightly with the laser bouncer receiving a 9% damage increase. The next buff being for the poison darts, increasing the poison tick to 4 and also increasing the poison strength by 40%. Following that, we do have a buff for the necklace of the Ice King, increasing its damage by 19% and also increasing its damage radius to 133%. Next buff being for the Ambience, increasing its rocket speed by 25% and also increasing its area damage and fixing its hitbox. The last buff for this category being for the Assassin's Assistant, receiving a lot more positive adjustments, with the first half increasing its damage by 14% and also a few positive buffs for ammo related, as well as some changes towards the damage reload as well as the chain damage. The next change being neutral being for the Underwater Whip, nerfing its damage by 30% and also nerfing the poison tick to 2, with it increasing the poison strength greatly. The next change being a nerf to the Tricky Maple, decreasing its damage by 11% but also decreasing the mine's lifespan by 25%. Next nerf being for the Cyber Cat Lantern, decreasing its mobility by 10 points and also decreasing its blindness duration by 17%. And the last nerf to cap off this category being a fan favorite being the Terramorphing Stone, decreasing its dairy damage by 20% and also decreasing its self-heal by 14%. Now proceeding for the Sniper category, there's a couple changes that I do love here and there. Let's knock out these two, being the Prototype getting a 6% damage increase as well as the Anti-Champion Rifle increasing its damage by 15%. Kinda surprising that these two were close to each other, some sort of rivalry here or something. Anyways, with another one being for the Black Hole increasing its damage by 6% and the Prototype S increasing its damage by 11%. Dang, 2 Prototype buffs and 1 anti-champion. No love for the anti-hero. The next buff being for the Bubblegum, increasing its damage by 16%, increasing its radius by 11%, and also doubling its initial ammo. Moving towards the nerfs, the Great Defender did receive a 23% damage decrease. The next nerf being for the Gojo's Wrath, decreasing its damage by 11%, decreasing its ammo to 6, and also decreasing its attack speed by 17%. Next nerf being for the Famer, decreasing its damage by 8%, and also decreasing its attack speed by 9%. The next nerf being for the Dragon X, decreasing its damage by 9%, and also a lot of nerfs to ammo related stuff. The next nerf that follows covers both Harsh Punishers. Both of these nerfs are identical, however the legendary Harsh Punisher did receive a negative 16 damage decrease, apart from the Mythic which received 10. And to top off the category, one neutral change being for the Ava, increasing the burning damage by 60% while also decreasing its burning tick by 2. Now we've gone through 5 categories, it's time for the last category being the heavy section. Starting off on the Christmas Ultimanium, the rocket speed has been increased by 47%, the damage radius has been increased by 33%, and also the attack speed has been increased by 15%. Next up being the Alien Cannon, increasing the damage by 17%, increasing the mobility by 5%, and also increasing the rocket speed by 50%. This one was pretty surprising, I'm not gonna lie. Anyways, the next weapon being for the Destruction System, increasing the rocket speed by 82%, increasing the damage radius to 14%, and giving it burning infliction. Being the Dislike, increasing the damage by 10%, increasing the rocket speed by 73%, and also also a couple ammo related buffs. The next weapon after being Project Red Button, increasing the damage by 13%, increasing the rocket speed by 30, increasing the damage radius by 40, and also increasing the damage absorption from 10% to 30%. Now moving towards a neutral adjustment for the Pixel Color Refresher, decreasing the damage by 11%, decreasing the damage radius by 17, decreasing the attack speed by 10%, but also increasing the rocket speed by 30%. With the last neutral adjustment being for the Dark Mage Wand, increasing the burning damage by 80% and also decreasing the burning tick by 2. You know what, never mind, there was actually one more buff for the Cerebrus, similar to the Dark Mage Wand but decreased 80% to 40. With the debuffs starting off with the Pixel games, decreasing the damage by 19%, but also being given the proper change with the DOT damage with each debuff. Second to last weapon being the Grimoire of Ruin, decreasing its damage by 9% and also reducing its cluster bomb damage by 10%. And the last change from the list being the Ice Club, decreasing the damage by 8%, decreasing the mobility to 75, reducing the target slowdown by 25%, and also decreasing the attack speed by 33. I didn't expect to take them long to just cover all 60 weapons that were listed here. I could also mention the monthly balance change that we got for this month, but I'll let that be covered by someone else. But anyways, in my opinion, this meta balance change is pretty alright. There's a few surprises, like for example the Golden Fern being given the critical damage attribute, the nerf for the Ultimatum being somewhat there, but also the duality between the touch-on offense being nerfed and the Thermotricide being buffed. Now the question is, do I think that these changes, what someone do is change up the meta? In my opinion, I don't think it would do is have the meta evolve with just a flick of a switch. If the developers want to do sort of interfere in order to do create an impact towards the meta, the developers could sort of do something similar to this, but you know, much more in the future. And hey, maybe the meta might truly change for the better. However, this is a start, I will say. But anyways, what do you guys think of the meta balance changes? Do you like the recent adjustments? Do you have any criticism with it? Let me know in the comments down below. Or share it through the Discord server, as they do have a dedicated thread for feedback. But anyways, I guess that'll do for me for now. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope this video was informative with the recent meta balance changes. As always, have a good day, night, or whenever you're watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next video.